What's going on, everybody? Doug here, one of the hosts, producers, and creators of the Genre of Your Life podcast, here with another review roundup episode for you all this week. Told you this last time, I had two for you guys this week. So again, this is going to be, another long overdue, but again, another double feature review roundup episode for you all this week. On this week's review roundup episode, I have my reviews of Novocaine as well as a movie called Locked. Two very different, but very, let's say, violently delicious. Yeah, I'll go with that. Movies this week for you all. Again, I'm sorry that our Sinners review is going to be out next week. We all wanted to see it opening night, opening weekend, so scheduling, of course, got in the way. But again, look out for our full review of the movie next week. All three of us will have seen it by then. If you saw our reaction last night on the podcast on our YouTube channel, me and Nick love this movie. So again, we cannot wait. We are eager to review that for you all on the podcast next week. And of course, we also have a review of The Count 2, movie that Nick and I both saw at South by Southwest last month. And again, we love the first one, so we are hyped to review that next week as well. So we have a really cool double feature full episode of the podcast next week. But of course, guys, until then, you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast platform of choice. And of course, you can see our lovely faces now on our YouTube page, the full video element of the show on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midway Avenue Productions. Like I said, they're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Subscribe, rate the show, review the show. We want to hear from you guys. Your feedback does mean the world to us. Neutral, positive, negative, hey, we'll take it. And again, we still have our ongoing goal of getting the Apple Podcast ratings to 200. That would mean the world to us. So again, rate, review the show, share it with a friend, family, movie fan, whatever. The support means the world to us. So again, thank you all for tuning in. And let's get into this review roundup episode, shall we? And again, like I said, let's start off with Locked. Locked is a very interesting movie that I think is going to be, it's one that's going to be hard to really pitch, I'll be honest with you, because again, it is a very, very intense movie, I'll say the least. And it's one that kind of saw random, I think I saw a trailer for it when I saw either Flight Risk or Presence a few months ago, early this year, and I was like, what is this movie? Is Bill Skarsgård? I was like, all right, I guess. But Locked, man. Locked. This movie really is something else. And I also want to apologize, too, because I thought it was an original film. It is based off of another film that came out a couple years ago, so please forgive me. But then Locked follows the story when Eddie breaks into a luxury SUV. He steps into a deadly trap set by a self-proclaimed vigilante who delivers his own brand of twisted justice. Trapped inside the car, Eddie soon discovers escape is an illusion and survival is a nightmare. The less you know about this movie, the better, I will say. But this movie is, no pun intended, a wild, sadistic, bombastic ride. And you'll probably hear me use the word bombastic a lot in this episode, like when it describes this movie Novocaine. But I cannot tell you the last time I felt this so anxious in a movie, and I felt so just on my edge where my palms were sweating, and where I was like, okay, like, oh my gosh, I just felt very again. I'm not someone who gets claustrophobic at all. Like, I don't have a fear of heights. I don't have a fear of like small spaces. But this movie, if you are claustrophobic or have any kind of sense of what you name it, I would not recommend this movie. To be honest with you, this movie is bonkers, and I mean bonkers crazy. Man, this movie is. To me, around me a lot of James Wan, the Safdie brothers, with a touch of Sam Raimi. And funny enough, when I was watching, I'm like, oh, this is very like Sam Raimi-esque. And I was like, yeah, I can definitely see this. And sure enough, at the end of the movie, he said, oh, produced by Sam Raimi. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, oh, that did for sure. And when I saw that, I was like, I wonder if Sam Raimi is kind of now becoming more of a like horror producer in a way of like, hey, he's trying to like, trying to find these, up and coming talent with the director of this who did David Yarovsky, I believe his name. It was a movie called Brightburn, came out a couple years ago, which I was not a big fan of. It was produced by James Gunn, written by his brothers. Cool premise, but kind of like what if Superman came down to the earth, but as a kid, instead of good, he was evil. And that to me, I was like, it was a cool premise, but execution felt very flat, very grindhouse wannabe, and I was like, whatever. And with this movie, again, seeing the trailer once a couple months ago, and I was like, okay, I'm intrigued by this. And also, I'm a big Bill Skarsgård fan. Yeah, like I said, if you're claustrophobic, you have any kind of fear of spaces or fear of being trapped at all, definitely, definitely avoid this movie. I will say this too. Again, I'm not a big fan of movies like the Saw franchise or Final Destination. They're not for me personally. But this was kind of like a not lighter, but this is definitely kind of like a step below them in terms of kind of like gruesomeness and brutality. There's like some brutal stuff in this movie for sure. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, it is a movie that'll make you feel anxious through and through. And I can tell you again, I remember just being my palm so sweaty, where I was like rubbing my leg, my pants. I was like, oh my gosh, what the hell? And I tell you what, Bill Skarsgård, man, is becoming one of my favorite actors to watch. He definitely kind of like, to me, I kind of like became more aware of him with it. Cause I thought he was phenomenal as Pennywise. To me, it's like really top 10 horror monsters of all time, in my opinion. And no offense to Tim Curry, but Bill Skarsgård just elevated that role and made something just so unique and so dangerous, but also so mesmerizing at the same time with Pennywise. And and to be honest though, I said to my elevator reaction as well that he's not afraid to take risks in movies. Stuff like this. I heard Boy Kills World is crazy. I think back to his role in Barbarian, John Wick 4. I like seeing him in these random movies. And again, in the movie was, excuse me, dog shit. I thought he was one of the, if not the only redeeming quality of the Crow remake. You can tell that he was trying to like do something different with it. The movie was still a piece of shit, but he was still probably the only thing I liked about that movie. But I see him like kind of these random roles here and there, and again, even Deadpool 2, the weird cameo. But for the most part, though, he seems to be kind of picking these very random, very weird, really ambitious roles, and I get getting props for that. He's not afraid to kind of do like these really kind of like out there projects, and I definitely think that whether it's an original or remake or whatever, he's not afraid to kind of like be himself. And I think he picks some really interesting roles that I think he really shines in, despite if the movie's good or not. And so I thought in this movie, like this movie is his movie through and through. Like he's putting on, to me, it's a really messed up one person show, like on stage. Like it's a weird analogy to make, that like I could see this being a stage play, like a one man show, and it kind of feels like that because of the one location, the one setting, and for the most time, him on screen is just himself. And I was like, wow, like this is definitely a performance, because again, it's all on him and it's all the direction he's been given. But again, I think he's a phenomenal actor, so I do like seeing him in more stuff. So again, looking forward to seeing what he does next. And like I said, in a way, this, I've been saying this a lot with other horror, quote unquote, and thriller movies recently, the genre where, I'm a big Black Mirror fan. I became more of a Black Mirror fan the past couple of years. I'm watching season 7 right now as we speak. But I've been seeing this a lot where I'm like, this could have been a Black Mirror episode. This could have been a Black Mirror episode. I said this with this drop. And something else that we saw recently, like Hollow Road, we saw in South by. I'm seeing a lot of genre films like this and other horror films that like felt really Black Mirror-ish because of the technology and kind of the use of technology and how it kind of it's been used as traps, or kind of like how it kind of lures you in something pretty ideal at first, but then very dangerous as time goes on. And watching this definitely had a Black Mirror vibe to it for sure. And watching it, I was like, ooh, like I think it's an hour and a half, give or take. It's definitely an hour and a half that goes by pretty quickly. But I do think if you cut a few minutes out here and there, certain stuff, it could have been a Black Mirror episode for sure. Probably would have been a really popular Black Mirror episode, if you ask me. But again, the movie really heavily relies on Bill Skarsgård. And there's some things you're just like, oh my God, it makes you kind of feel just so uneasy, so feeling kind of disgusted. I mean, in terms of kind of like what he has to do, because he's trapped in this car for a couple of days. And, when you're that desperate, like your survival instinct kind of kick in, and it's like, what do you do? And there's some really gnarly and kind of nasty stuff that has to do. But again, he's not afraid to, as an actor, kind of be on screen and showcasing kind of like really this gnarly stuff. And I'm like, oh man, again, props him as an actor and performer for that. And this, it's one of those things where I don't know if I want to watch it again anytime soon, but there were certain things where I was like, oh my god, like geez. And again, I don't, I do, I like, I love like Uncut Gems and Good Time like Safdie Brothers movies, but I can't watch it so soon after because I kind of have to let it like kind of just like marinate for a little bit and kind of like think about it. And this one kind of stuck with me for a little bit where I was like, oh my goodness. And I was like, whatever. I was like, oh man, like there was one scene I was like, geez, it kind of popped in my head randomly days later. With that said, though, the movie definitely, again, that's my Mickey 17 review. Again, I have no problem with movies trying to have a social commentary, have a message, like just make it hit home like very well, or make it clever, make kind of have a purpose. I don't think the social commentary in this movie works the way they want it to. I feel like they're definitely trying to make a statement of like the times now and the past couple of years, and the rich versus the poor. And I think there's been a lot of movies that have done that very well or very cleverly in a kind of own very unique way. And I feel like this movie kind of just tries to like kind of like bombard you with it a little too much, where you're like, okay, I get where you're trying to go with this, but you keep reminding us this. It's like we get it. Like you're kind of beating us over the head with it a little bit. And if you made it more of a character itself, made it more kind of like seep in here and there, as like a reminder down the road or a reminder in parts here and there. But it was kind of like constantly showing you this, constantly telling you this. And again, that's kind of, I would say, weaker direction, bigger storytelling, if you ask me. Nothing wrong with having that in your projects, not at all, but just make it feel like make it feel like natural, make it feel like unique to the story and the story you're telling, and don't keep just like harping on it over and over again, because then it's kind of like, are you kind of just like kind of getting annoyed, kind of getting tired of your own, what you're trying to include in this. So I thought, again, and I do think that's what Black Mirror does really well. I think Black Mirror has certain messages in their stories that kind of work, kind of weaves in between very well with the story, the overall arc, kind of like how certain characters act a certain way. Even Twilight Zone, for example, too, has the same kind of thing, and that's why I think why Black Mirror is very well, because again, it has no problem having a message, or having a kind of just like, oh, we're gonna use this as kind of as a metaphor for this. Like, oh, interesting. I like to know more about it. But when this movie, it's so in your face, you're just like, okay, we get it. You see your point, we get it. So I think the movie suffers from its like nature of trying to like express this social commentary a little too much. And Anthony Hopkins, legendary Sir Anthony Hopkins, that is. Most of them, again, I'm trying not to spoil this movie, but I wish that he's, because I think in the trailer, like you see him in the movie, but I think it would have been more effective if we never saw him in the movie at all. Like only heard his voice, because majority of the movie he's talking to Bill Skarsgård through the dashboard of the car, and I was like, oh, I kind of like that, because again, it kind of adds to the mystery of this all. Like, what is this person doing? What is his motives? Why is he doing this? What is his purpose behind this? Why is he doing this to Bill Skarsgård's character? And then when he shows up in the movie, you're kind of like, all the illusions gone. Like, oh, like it was kind of cooler when we didn't see him. It was more like more kind of like sinister. And I was like, oh yeah, I like that a lot. But then when you see him, it kind of like, it kind of gets a little kind of goofy, a little silly. And I was like, ooh, like you guys probably should have just stayed with him as a just a voice only. And when he's on camera, kind of just takes away from the movie itself. And I was like, oh, okay. But again, still, he's a legend. I do like seeing them together. Like both of them are just phenomenal actors in their own ways. And if you're watching it on YouTube, right? If you're watching my review on YouTube right now, like this car is very interesting. It's like a Bentley, but as a tank. And I like when, I remember as a kid, I like when you see very unique stuff like the watches in like Spy Kids, or I'm trying to think of an example too, but I'm blanking on some actually. But as a kid, I love seeing unique and kind of like made for the movie technology. I think like Skyfall, when the gun that he has from Q, like, oh yeah, here's the gun, like it's only because your DNA palm print is on it, only you can use it. And I was like, well, I kind of like that. So I like when films and shows and projects kind of like are make technology that's made for the screen. Made for the movie itself, for the project itself. And the car in this is really cool because again, it's a Bentley kind of wannabe, but the way it's designed, it's very interesting because again, you've never seen a car like this before. It's very high upscale, very luxury, but again, it's made for the movie. It's almost a character of its own. And I was like, I like when when films and TVs kind of utilize like the technology they're using very well, and it's like almost its own character in the movie. And I did say this in my out of theater reaction as well. And excuse my language, but this is like a really fucked up version of Knight Rider, like the most like sinister and just like very sadistic version of Knight Rider you can think of. This movie kind of like when you see, you'll understand of like, oh, again, it's a very out there remark to make on my end. Don't get me wrong, but while watching it, I was like, when you boil it down, this is a really, really messed up version of Knight Rider, like for sure. Reminds David Hasselhoffness of it all, and kind of like the like, but it's a very you'll see, you'll see. And I was the whole time I'm like, oh yeah, this is like Knight Rider in a way, but more sadistic and fucked up. But I would give Locked again, and forgive me again for not knowing this was a remake. I thought it was an original film. I praised that in my out of theater reaction. I would give Locked a solid 6.5 out of ooh. Yeah, I would give no, actually, I actually give it a round up. Time to round up. I would give it a 7 out of 10. I think there was times where I was like, oh my gosh, I was never once was like, okay, get on with it. Even my problems with the social commentary being kind of like overdone, I never once was like, oh my god, like okay, whatever. I just was so engaged to a point, and I was again, my palms were sweaty. I was so like, what's going to happen? How's he going to get out of this? And again, that's kind of viewed as the testament to Bill Skarsgård as a performer, but also the direction from David, where I was like, oh, okay, now I see. Okay, I'm with this now. And again, I really do hope that we see more films like this in terms of kind of the budget. Like, you can definitely tell this is a very low budget film. And again, it's films like this nowadays are getting made exclusively for streaming, or made for Netflix, or just acquired by a streaming service randomly on Netflix or Hulu or Peacock, whatever. And again, it kind of reminds me of like when I saw movies growing up, like the most random thing you can think of, no one heard of it, but I saw it and I'm like, oh, I saw this movie, and no one heard of it. And I think this might be, I wouldn't say a cult classic, but I think it will probably do very well when it comes on streaming on Netflix or Hulu or whatever. And I do like, again, it's not being selfish or like film snobbish, but it's more that I do like seeing kind of just the random out there movies that no one's heard of. Because again, I do kind of like putting people on. And again, I think back up to a film like Strange Darling last year, or Barbarian a couple years ago. My circle didn't know that movie at all, and the more people I told about it, they were like, "Oh, we're watching." They're like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy." I kind of hope that we see, compared to like Companion, which was a studio budget movie, but still a very low budget movie. Locked was no distribution, smaller production companies, like this. I love seeing movies like that because you see like 20 production companies in the first like 2 minutes. You're like, another one, because again, there's no really major financing. It kind of just various different financiers and finance companies. It's like, okay, it's like 2 minutes of this. It's kind of funny. So yeah, guys, I'll give Locked 7 out of 10. If you like kind of like really kind of dark and twisted movies like this, again, not like Saw or not like Saw or what is it? Final Destination, but still like twisted. It's definitely like, I think it's more of a performance based kind of movie with a thriller horror aspect to it, and a bit of sci-fi. It's a tiny bit of sci-fi. But yeah, moving on to a movie that's also bombastic, like I said, and that is Novocaine. And Novocaine is a movie that I remember seeing the trailers for like a while ago, and I was like, okay, Jack Quaid, I like from The Boys. I loved him. And I loved him in Companion, like seeing him in a lot of stuff now. And I think a lot of people were seeing I think a lot of people were. I think the marketing has been really interesting because again, if you saw, I'll pull up right here too. If you're watching on YouTube, but also to our audience, our audio listeners as well. What I like about what Paramount's done recently of these smaller original films, like when like the Smile people, they sent people to like the World Series games, wearing like church has a smile. That's it, and they're looking at the camera very like sinister and very like scary. And again, that worked because people were like, "What the hell is this?" Novocaine was funny because they sent Jack Quaid and I think Amber Mindhunter is her name. No, what is her name? Mindhunter. Wow, that's a whole show. Ember Mid Thunder. My bad. And they sent him to a Clippers game, and sure enough, as time went on during the game, Jack Quaid became more and more injured. It was really funny. I think we were at South by when this was happening. I was looking on Instagram. I'm like, oh, this is really clever because again, it was really cool to see like how they were like as the game was going on, you saw Jack Quaid like in a neck brace, in a sling, into broken arm cast, and I thought it was really funny to see how they did it. Again, it's that kind of like low budget marketing, didn't cost them much, and to the stars to the game, and it was really funny to see him like see that. And I was like, oh, it's really clever that Paramount did that. And again, it was all tied into the marketing. I like that kind of like, I wouldn't say guerrilla style marketing, but again, it works with the kind of the viralness, that the word of it all. And again, if you can find it, watch the video of like him as the game went on, the Clippers game, him getting more and more injured. But Novocaine is about when the girl of his dream gets kidnapped. A man turns his inability to feel pain into unexpected advantage as he fights a bunch of thugs to get her back. You're gonna hear me a lot on the podcast recently. I had a wildly fun time with this movie. Granted, because I think it was an original film like this, original studio film like this for the big screen that could have been a Paramount Plus movie, could have been a Hulu movie, whatever. But again, you take a kind of like rising star, he has fame from his parents, Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan. But again, Jack Quaid seems to be making a name of his own with The Boys, Companion, all the different projects, you name it. Oppenheimer, a small role. But again, you didn't take Timothée Chalamet, you didn't take John Boyega. You took someone who's kind of like, kind of a quirky kind of guy, and made him a kind of an action star, like a very kind of like, I wouldn't call it John Wick, but very John Wick-esque, where it's bombastically violent. It is ruthless at times, and it reminded me a lot of like Edgar Wright films. Edgar Wright had kind of like a stylish, hyper-violent kind of movies that was really charming, really funny. This had an Edgar Wright kind of feel to it through and through. But again, what really works is because Jack Quaid is kind of this very likable, quirky guy that's kind of like, I think back to even like Nobody with Bob Odenkirk. You're like, Bob Odenkirk and Mr. Show, Saul from Breaking Bad is going to be an action movie produced by the guys who did John Wick. Ain't no way. But it worked. And I really hope Nobody 2 is good. I'm nervous about it, but hope it's really good. But I kind of like these unlikely heroes. That's what it is. Unlikely heroes, kind of like, no way, Jack Quaid's gonna be an action star. Yeah, sure, whatever. And it works. It really works. And I had the biggest smile on my face for the hour. Again, it's an hour 40, hour 35. It goes by super quick. It knows what it is. It's not trying to be like, oh, we'll show you what this kind of movie is. Like, it knows what it is. It's an action rom-com that's very violent, very, very dark at times, and it just works. And I had so much fun with this movie. When I have a big smile on my face through and through, it's like, man, I just this is why I go to the movies, so stuff like this. And again, I really makes me kind of sad that we're seeing, quarter one of this year has been the worst box office since 1996, and people will complain all the time. Not enough original movies in theaters anymore. Guys, we have so much original movies in theaters nowadays, and you gotta support them. Like, this is why I always say at the reactions, go support original films. We saw so many original films at South by, and I hope this year's gonna see more, because again, it's like, this is like why I go to the movies. Yeah, you can see me like this on Paramount for sure, Paramount Plus or Netflix for sure. I get it, but the experience of supporting this on the big screen, again, the theaters need it, and the film industry needs it so much right now. And I'm so glad that Paramount believed this movie enough to get a theatrical release. I think also lower budget, like 15, 18 mil. Smart. It wasn't a huge marketing budget like I showed you how he did with the Clippers game. And again, let's go back to this era of like the lower 10 to maybe 5 to 10 to $20 million budget movies, lower budget movies, and watch them. Word of mouth would probably be very good. And again, I think this movie had an 18 mil budget, and I think it made like 35, 40 mil back. So again, it wasn't a huge profit, but it made the money back. And I think more studios and more companies should go back to that model. It works, and you get really fun and unique stuff like this where it works. Like, back to a movie like Overlord, Zombies World War II. No way it's gonna work. And again, no one saw that movie, and it's so much fun. And that was probably my top 10 of that year. And again, I really hope that we see the return of this, also with longer release windows, hopefully going back to 30 or 45 at least. No, the 90 to whatever days are gone, unless you're a Chris Nolan, I don't even think Spielberg has that anymore. Unless you're a Nolan, a Tarantino, it's harder to get those longer extensions in the cinemas now. But it's very bloody. It's very gory. If you're not a fan of like bloody, gory stuff, I would definitely say don't watch this movie because it is gnarly at times. You're like, oh my gosh, like I don't do again when it comes to like fingernails pulling or just like really kind of this like small torture stuff I can't watch. And this movie, as much as I loved it, I had to turn away a couple of times where I was like, oh hell no, like I was like I'm not a big squeamish person, but this movie I was like, oh no, or even kind of eye stuff. I remember like John Wick 3 when he put the knife in the guy's eye, where I was like no, I had to look away. I was like, absolutely not. But with that said though, it to me, the charm of the movie is really Jack Quaid. Like the shot you see on our YouTube video, very Matrix kind of Ray Trinity based. And again, you can tell that like these guys making this movie love action movies. Jack Quaid likes action movies, and again, he's not unlikable, the unlikely hero to kind of be your driving factor of the movie. And again, I was like at times it was very emotional. Like, at times I was like, oh, this is very sweet and very emotional, like very like no pun intended because he's the son of Meg Ryan, but very kind of like when Harry Met Sally esque. And I was like, this is kind of odd for an action comedy like this, but again, it works. And again, Jack Quaid and Midthunder were very, very charming. They had great chemistry. And I think also credit to Jack Quaid's ability as an actor that whether it's Sophie Thatcher in Companion, or I think of Elaine Moriarty in The Boys, like he seems to have great chemistry with all his co-stars, all his female co-stars. And I'm like, good for Jack Quaid. Even his male co-stars like Carl Urban and beyond the rest of the crew and cast from The Boys. But again, that's credit to Jack Quaid's leading man material. Like he has really good chemistry with a lot of his co-stars. Even someone like Glenn Powell, for example. Glenn Powell, I think, has great chemistry with all his co-stars, whether it's Daisy Edgar Jones, Zoe Deutsch, Sydney Sweeney. Like it's the guys that have the kind of natural chemistry with all their co-stars, and they're very likable at the same time, both on screen and off screen. And also, I never to pull this up too, but I haven't seen a lot of stuff with both Tom Holland and Jacob Batalon, who are Ned and Peter and Ned, of course, from the Spider-Man Homecoming trilogy, that I haven't seen them in things outside of Spider-Man that they kind of worked for me. But I'll tell you what, I thought Jacob Batalon in this was really funny because he's kind of playing this kind of like goofy kind of guy. But again, he's sweet in his own way. And I was like, oh, it works. And again, him and Jack Quaid have really chemistry. But I think for kind of like more comedic relief, Jacob Batalon did a good job kind of playing kind of like supporting role. And speaking of supporting roles, Ray Nicholson, man, Jack Nicholson's son, very good in this too. I think I'm seeing him a lot more stuff too. I thought he was good in Smile, not amazing in Smile, but I thought you could tell he's having a lot of fun with this movie. He's playing kind of like over the top, kind of exaggerated villain, but it works. And there's some kind of surprises here and that kind of that surprised me, where I was like, oh no, really? That's interesting. And again, he played a really good villain really well, really good kind of dickhead and douchebag very well. And I was like, okay, I see that. But again, cool seeing him in more stuff too, and it works. He's a really good villainous role, despite kind of being a little corny at times. It definitely works. Like I said, a movie, it's cartoonish violence at times, like kind of almost like Kingsman level violence, but again, it's not like in your face of like kind of like stylized, like kind of like John Wick or kind of like Atomic Blonde, stuff like that. Is more comedic and Edgar Wright, Matthew Vaughn action kind of based, but it works. It really does work. And again, I had a lot of fun with this movie. I'm giving Novocaine really a solid 8 out of 10. It will probably be my top 10 of the year for the most part right now. And again, I just like seeing action. Again, I'm a sucker for action comedies. Everyone knows this. And when it delivers, I think also having the balance of action comedy is very important. So sometimes I see films that are too good on the action and kind of lacking on the comedy, or good on the comedy and bad for the action. And this movie had a fine line of both. I think it balanced it really well. And again, I just love seeing original films like this on the big screen. But yeah, guys, those are my two my reviews for this week's, again, overdue review episode of the podcast. I promise, again, you have my word. Going to the end of the spring movie season, the summer movie season, when we have more newsletters or more review bonus episodes like this, I will do much better with my turnaround time. Please forgive me. But yeah, guys, again, stay tuned for next week. We have a great episode for our reviews of Sinners and The Accountant 2, and then hopefully by I want to say the first episode of May, we're gonna hopefully have our summer movie preview season episode. One of my favorite episodes to do every year. Look out for that. We have some cool guests coming on this summer too. We're trying to get more guests on, interview based, kind of having our friends that we love sharing, our movie taste with too. So look out for that. And of course, guys, again, go to the movies this weekend. There's so much out this weekend, everybody. Whether it's Minecraft, Drop, Sinners. Again, please see Sinners. Again, if you can. See, little tease for next week's episode. Sinners in 70mm IMAX. Go out the way. It's worth every penny if you ask me. See it in that format. Again, Minecraft, Drop, Warfare, Amateur, you name it. I mean, there's amazing things out right now. If you can still see Novocaine theaters, I would highly recommend seeing this in theaters if you can at a second run theater or local theater. But again, guys, go support the theaters this weekend. Have so much awesome content, awesome films and movies out right now in the theaters. Again, get big popcorn, get a big icy. We're so close to some movie season, but let's really end this spring movie season on the right note. All right, guys, until then, take care. And of course, we'll see you guys at the movies.